We are the Gujarat Technological University. Since its inception over a decade ago, GTU has been empowering young and curating minds to realize their true potential. Over 4 lakh inspired students are enrolled with one of the premier academic universities in India. With more than 450 affiliated colleges in its fold operating across 5 zones of the state, GTU, the International Innovative University, your place to move forward.
Hello everyone, I'm Professor AKRUTI from AHMEDABAD Institute of Technology. Today we will see one more C programming concept, and that is about functions. So these functions are divided in 2 parts in my lesson. In first part, we will see the basic definition, how to declare a function, what is a user-defined function, and the parameters which are known as formal parameters and actual parameters. So let us see this one by one. So your first part is about what is the definition of a function. Whenever we are talking about a function, basically it is a block of code that performs a specific task. Any block of code that performs a specific task. Suppose I want to print a message, so that is my task. For that I need to write some code. That is one kind of function. Basically, up till now you have seen we were using only one function, that was main, right? So today we will see which kind of other functions you can use in your C program. So basically there are 2 types of a function. First one is your standard library functions. Second one is your user-defined functions. So what is the meaning of standard library functions? Standard library functions means they are built-in functions which are already available in a C program. For example, printf, to print a message, string copy, to copy a string. Same way you can mention void main also, that is also one kind of your standard library function. Now this lesson is more focused on user-defined functions because we have already seen the usage of standard library functions like printf, scanf, which is mentioned in stdio.h header file. So today we will see more about the user-defined functions. User-defined functions means a function which is created by you as per your need. In C program, you can create functions as per your need, which are known as your user-defined functions. Suppose I want to make a function which prints 1000 numbers in integer, in float, in different kind of formats. So at that time I can define a function of my name also. So that depends on my need. We will see this concept about user-defined functions one by one. So first part is about declaring a function. Whenever we want to write a C program, the first part always comes like how to declare that thing, how to initialize that thing. When you deal with a variable, you need to declare it, then you need to assign a value to it also. Same way for a function also. First of all, you need to declare a function and then you will start its calling. We are having initialization in variable, but in function we are having calling a function. Okay. So first thing is declaring a function. So for declaring a function, after mentioning about your header file in your C program, after you include your header file in your C program, you have to declare the function like this. This is the syntax of it. First part is return type, in which you can mention whether it is void, integer or anything. So that is your one kind of return type. Your function is returning a value of some kind. Suppose I am adding 2 numbers, then my return type can be integer. It can be done via void also. So that depends on the specific task which you are mentioning in your program. So basically in declaring a function, first part is your return type. Second is your function name. If I am writing void main, void is my return type, main is my function name. So same way, return type, function name, and the third one into bracket, I have to mention the parameter list. Parameter is also known as arguments. We will see this concept later on in this video. So now when I have mentioned this return type, function name, parameter list, I have to end this statement with a semicolon. And here my declaration of a function terminates. After that, I have to mention my main function, in which I will call my function and I will end the main here. After the void main block, once the void main block gets over, I have to mention the statements which are required in my function. So the function which I have declared here before main, the statements in it are declared after main. Okay, so you have to define your function here. We will see this concept with a program. And always remember, every C program has at least one function. Suppose in a normal C program, we can say that is your void main. Okay, without any single function, C program cannot run. So now let us see this declaring a function part with an example. So first of all, let us see how we are using a user-defined function without a parameter. Without a parameter in this sense, in this bracket we are not writing anything. Okay, so let us start with this block of function declaration at right side, and in the left side I am having my program. So my first sentence is including the header file. As you can see, that was my function block. Second sentence in a function declaration was a return type, function name and parameter list. Since I am giving an example, a user defined function without a parameter, I have returned my function name void sum, and in bracket I have not mentioned any parameters. My third statement was return type and main. So I am using my void main here. In function declaration I have to use the semicolon, so I have used a semicolon here. Okay, sum is the name of my user defined function. Now what I am doing in void main, we have to define a function call. Okay, so for calling the function we need not write the return type. Here we just have to write the name of the function, bracket and a semicolon for calling my function. And my main ends here, as you can see, return type main ends here. Now in the right side you can see return type, function name, parameters list and the curly braces. That means now after the main I have to define the statements which are to be executed in my user defined function. So suppose I am taking here void sum, so I have defined void sum here with the statements which I need to get executed. So this is a function of adding two numbers, so in which void sum I have defined three variables. First two variables are for taking the number for input, and the third variable is about addition of these two. So I have written printf statement for entering two numbers, then I'm taking scanf to take the input from the user. Okay, then I'm calculating the answer. I have taken here answer, so that's why I have written answer here is equal to a plus b, and I'm printing the sum. Okay, so now what is the flow of the program here? First of all, I have just defined this function, user defined function void sum. Then while entering the void main, the first statement which comes here is sum. So what will my compiler do? It will directly jump to the function sum. So when it will enter this function sum, it will do all these lines mentioned here. So my first line is declaring and initializing my variable. Okay, so I'm just declaring my variable here. For initialization, I'm taking the input from the user, as you can see here from printf and scanf. Then I'm calculating and printing it. So once my printf statement occurs, here the curly brace mentions that my function has mentioned all the line of codes. No further lines are there in my function. Okay, so when I will call this sum here, it will give me the answer of this, and my answer is found from a plus b. Okay, so after printing the message, I'm finding that void main is also ending, so no more task to do, right? So here you can see the output also. It asks enter two numbers, so I have entered 4 and 5. So as per my printed message, sum is equal to percentage %t, it has given me sum is equal to 9. Okay. Basically, it's an easy task. You can do it without a function also, but functions are actually very useful to reduce the lines of the codes. Suppose I have written a program in which I need to use sum of two numbers again and again 1 lakh times. At that time, you really don't need to write this sentence again and again. Simply you can do just calling this function sum. So it will do the rest of the codes, right? So that is to improve the reusability of the code, we can use these functions. Suppose I have written a program in which I need to do sum also, multiplication also, subtraction also, division also for so many times. At that time, there is no need to write these statements again and again. You can simply define it as a function and you can call it here. So always remember, functions are one kind of reusable codes which you can use again and again in a program. And there are two things which need to be remembered. When you declare a function, you are mentioning it with a semicolon. But when you write the lines of code in a function, there are no semicolons here. Okay, so this program was without a parameter. Now let's see a program with a parameter.
Okay, so now let us see one more example, that is a user-defined function with parameter. Parameters in the sense one kind of argument that can be used for a function's processing. Okay, one kind of values or type of the values you are giving to a function so that further processing can be done. Suppose I want to define a function named as math, in which if I am taking two numbers from the user, it should print addition and multiplication. Okay, whenever I'm calling the function, it should print its addition and multiplication. So for that, at right side, you can see the basic block of how to define a function. Okay, first sentence is my return type, function name and parameter list ending with a semicolon. So I have mentioned my return type void, my function name is math, and I am having two parameters here, integer a and integer b. Whenever you are mentioning your parameters, it can be only in data type also. If you are mentioning it like integer comma integer, then also it's fine. Compiler will understand, okay, there are two arguments that are of kind integer, two values you will pass, okay, and you can give its name also like integer a and integer b. Okay, now as the third part, you can see in the right side, that is your return type and main. So I have mentioned my void main here, semicolon does not come after main. Okay, now in main, I have to mention my function call, but I can mention other sentences also, right? So in main, what I have done here is I have taken two numbers. You can see on the left side, I have taken two numbers of integer data type, that is integer number 1 and integer number 2. Okay, now I'm printing a message that enter two numbers and I'm scanning it here as number 1 and number 2. Now I'm calling this function, that is my math function, in which two parameters are passed, that is number 1 comma number 2. Now whenever you are mentioning your parameters like this in void main, suppose they are named as number 1 and number 2, then while calling the function you have to mention those parameters which are mentioned in your main function. Okay, we will see the concept of your formal parameter and actual parameter also. Okay, so as you can see, I have mentioned two variable number 1 number 2. So in function calling also I have mentioned two variable same, those are mentioned in void main. Now, after in the right side, you can see after you complete your main function, you have to define your function. Okay, so now whatever function I have declared here, I have to start its line of code from here after the completion of void main. So I'm writing it as void math integer a and integer b. Okay, in which now I'm taking two variables. Now why I have taken two variables here? Because I want to print the addition and multiplication of two numbers. So I'm taking addition and multiplication in add and mul variable. I'm defining its procedure like add is equal to a plus b and mul is equal to a into b. Why I have taken a and b? Because in my function I have defined it as integer a and integer b. Now I'm printing it, addition of two numbers, addition of and multiplication of two numbers in multiplication, right? Now what is the basic flow of this program? Whenever my main program my compiler will scan these two numbers, it will call this function. So whenever my function will be called, what is the first procedure? Right here I have mentioned it number 1 and number 2. Okay, but what is the first procedure in my calling function? That whatever parameters passed in the function are actually getting added and actually getting multiplied. From a simple example, I can tell whatever I'm writing in the bracket, suppose here it is number 1, number 2, and in this function it is integer A, integer B. Whatever parameters I'm writing in my bracket, what happens to them is mentioned in your function calling. Suppose I'm having A and B, then A and B are getting added here. So what will happen in my void main? Number 1 plus number 2 will get added here. Now in multiplication A into B are getting multiplied. So what will happen in void main? Number 1 and number 2 will get multiplied. Now I have to write the answers of it. Okay. So it will give me the addition of number 1 plus number 2 and multiplication of number 1 and number 2. So as we have seen before, functions are actually used to improve the reusability of a code. Okay. So this program can work for all the numbers. Suppose user is entering 4, 5, 2, 3, 1, 2, anything. It will give me the addition and multiplication of two number. Okay. So basically just remember whenever you are mentioning a function, you just have to mention those tasks which you need to carry out with whatever number user will enter. Okay, so here the concept of two parameters rise, that is formal parameter and actual parameter, which we will see in next slide what that all thing is about. So you can see here I have mentioned it AB, but same procedure will get onto number 1, number 2. Okay, so whatever variables you are mentioning, whatever parameters you are mentioning in your function actually gets implemented in your main parameters, whatever values you are getting in main. Now you can see the output. It will ask me enter the two numbers. Why it's asking me? Because in void main I have mentioned this print message. Then after entering 5 and 6, on calling this function math, what it will do? 5 and 6 will get added and 5 and 6 will get multiplied. Okay, so that is the basic thing how your function works with parameters. Now let us see parameter or function arguments. So as we have seen parameters in the bracket, there are two kind of parameters. One is formal parameters, second one is actual parameter. When you are declaring a function, the parameters which you are using, like in previous example, we have taken integer and an integer b, that is my formal parameter. Those are used while declaring the function. Now, what are actual parameters? Actual parameters means the actual values passed to the function as parameters while calling the function. In previous examples, we used number 1, number 2. Okay. When I was calling my math function, I used the values number 1 and number 2 because I was taking that from the input in the user. So those are actual my values which I am passing to the function. Function is having different variables a and b. Those are my formal parameter. But what are my actual parameter on which I'm implementing the function? That is my actual parameters. Okay, my actual values. So in previous example, whatever value you are taking in the input, those are your actual parameters. So be aware about this concept, formal parameter and actual parameters. These are asked a lot of times in different examinations also, and in different programming language also the concept remains same. Now let us see one C program. This is very important one for swapping two numbers, and it's actually getting asked in many placement drives also. So please say that very carefully. So this program states that write a C program using a function to swap two numbers taken from the user. Swapping means I just want to exchange these two numbers. Okay. So when you want to exchange two things, you need some temporary third thing. We can take that from an example. Suppose I'm having two glasses. In one glass I'm having milk, in second glass I'm having water. Now I want to exchange the glasses in such way that first glass will contain water and second glass will contain milk now. So what I will do? I will take third empty glass. I will spill the content of first glass into the third. So my first glass will be empty now. I will enter the elements of second glass into the first glass now. Okay. So my second glass is also empty now. So my third glass, which I had taken as temporary thing, I will spill all the content of it into the second glass. and I will get this exchanged, right? So same way you have to deal with numbers also. Suppose you are having two numbers A and B, okay? This is the container of A, this is the content of B. So I will take one more variable C, okay? So what I will do, suppose I'm having here 1 and 2 and I want to swap it so that my values can be 2 and 1, right? So what I will do, I will get this one into this empty container, okay? That is my third variable. So now I'm having 1 here and this glass is empty, right? So what I will do after this, I will enter the 2 here, okay? So now it's containing 2. So now this one is empty, and now what is the last stage? This one is added here. So I'm having my 2 converted into 1, right? So you can see my values are swapped, okay? So same way I have to take a function for swapping these two variables. So let us say that one by one. First of all, I'm taking this header file inclusion. Okay. After that, I'm mentioning my function void swap. As I have said earlier, you can mention a variable, or without variable also, you just have to write a return type of it. So you can mention it as integer also, or you can mention it like this also, integer A, integer B. It's up to you. Okay. When the declaration part comes. Now I have taken here integer main. Whenever you are returning a value, you have to take it as main with a return type. Okay, so it's here integer main with return 0. In integer main, I have taken two variables, that is x and y, in which I'm scanning my number. So my message is enter the value of x and y. It has been scanned in two variable. Now I'm printing it before swapping the values, so that what are the actual values of x and y, I can get it. Okay. Then I'm calling the function here swap xy. Okay. So now here, which were my formal parameters? My formal parameters were this a and b, but what are my actual parameters? Those are x and y. Okay. So now once the function gets called, I want to get the message printed that after swapping the values are this. Okay. And return 0 because I have mentioned here integer main. So now after my main gets completed, I'm mentioning the function void swap. Okay. In void swap, I'm taking the third temporary variable. So in temporary variable, I'm getting the value of second variable as I have said. In this temp variable, you can swap the values by this logic. Okay. Then temp is equal to B, B is equal to A is equal to temp. So normally when you are assigning a value, B is assigned to temp. Here A is assigned to B. And here temp is assigned to A. The value which are at right side will be get assigned to the values which are at left side. After that, I'm simply printing the values. Okay. So when my main function will call this swap, what it will do? It will take temp is equal to y because I'm taking x and y. Okay. So here my statement will be temp is equal to y, then it will be y is equal to x when I will call it in main. Okay. And third statement is x is equal to temp. Okay. So that's how my function works. Whatever variable I'm mentioning in my function declaration are just formal, which are just showing the flow of the function. But when I call it in main, those are my actual parameters on which the method of the function will get implemented. Okay. So this is the basic output of it. Enter the value of x and y. I'm entering 3 and 4. So before swapping, it shows me 3, 4. And after swapping, it shows me 4 and 3. Okay. So that is your main concept like this. Okay. You can do the program of your swapping with using a function. There will be one more video lesson on function in which the important part will be covered, that is about a function call. There are two kinds of call, that is call by value, call by first reference, and the third one is recursive function. Okay, so we will see that in next video lesson. If you are having any doubt, you may ask. That's it about the functions first part.